6:01. Got it.
Perfect. Well, we are now recording. We'll get started here. If you are here to talk about candidate forums and forum alternatives, you are in the right space. Just a couple logistical things. Please mute yourself when you're not talking, just so we don't get feedback from your microphone, or if somebody's talking to you in the background. You might want to have those conversations be private. And then the chat is open, so if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to put comments in the chat. We will have a few sections where we have kind of open discussion, but just to be able to moderate it, we do ask that you use the raise your hand function so that we can call on you and have you give your piece. And then I know Posey and I are available to stay on past the hour if we need more time, if there's questions at the end or discussion that needs to be had. So just be aware of that. But if you at any time need to drop off because something's come up, or you need to do something else, that's fine. As we said, this is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to catch up with the rest of the webinar. And then just to introduce myself and Posey, let's go ahead and do that. I'm Eileen Newcomer. I'm the Voter Education Manager for the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. I'm on staff with the State League, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Posey, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, Posey, you're muted.
Yep, I got the message. I'm Posey Thorough. I'm with the Winnebago County League. I'm Voter Services Chair there, and we are in the thick of it with candidate forums right at the moment. So this is just the perfect time to be talking about this. Do you want me to call in someone?
No, I think we're just going to introduce ourselves.
Just us. Okay.
Yeah.
Go
and
ahead.
If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, that's great. I've seen a number of people already go ahead and do that. So if you want to continue that process, that's lovely. Just to keep us moving, I'm going to go to our next slide, just to give everyone an overview of what we're planning on covering today. We're going to go over the candidate forum policy that the State League has for state and federal offices, and some of the guidelines that we have put together. We'll go over some DEI best practices or things to consider when putting your forum together, some best practices and the policy in action. Posey is going to cover that section and talk about, what does this look like in the field and planning candidate forums. And then we're going to go over some alternatives, things that local leagues are doing in the state that maybe your league would be interested in taking up and working on. Candidate forums are not the end all be all for candidate engagement to inform voters. So we know that there's a lot of alternatives out there. And then we're going to kind of wrap it up and then open it up for any questions or further discussion that we want to have. Some people have joined us since we first started, and so I wanted to mention again that Posey and I will, try our best to keep it to an hour. But if we have more discussion or questions, we are more than happy to stay on later. And the webinar will be recorded and shared out afterwards. So to dive in, I first wanted to talk a little bit about the League of Women Voters framework for holding candidate forums or just engaging candidates in general. Our purpose is always to provide information for voters so that they can make informed decisions when they go and vote. So our real top priority is our voters and not, candidates, and providing them a platform and that sort of thing. So that's always kind of the grounding framework. We also have a really solid nonpartisanship policy. So we want to make sure that any activities that we do don't lift up one candidate over another, one party over another. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. We also have a really solid DEI policy, and that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we want to make sure that we bring that into our work in voter services as well, and make sure that all of our activities are are inclusive and accessible to everyone. And then also, just so everyone's aware, the state league and all of the local leagues across the state are 501c3 organizations. And so we do need to follow the IRS guidelines for nonpartisanship as well because of our tax status. And then just a little bit about the regulatory framework as well. We need to operate within the guidelines of the Federal Election Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and the IRS, as well as making sure that we're falling within the rules of the Wisconsin Elections Commission and Wisconsin Ethics Commission as well. That means that there needs to be at least 2 candidates in a forum or a debate. If we're going to broadcast a forum, which includes live streaming it or posting it on YouTube, we need to make sure that we're following the federal communications regulations, and then also the IRS's nonpartisanship guidelines, which says that organizations may not participate, intervene directly or indirectly with a political campaign on behalf of or in opposition of a candidate for public office. The policy that we're going to be walking through, which is the state league policy, makes sure that we are operating within all of these guidelines. But just wanted to give you a sense of, what are some of the regulatory bodies that monitor candidate engagement activity, and that we don't run afoul of any of those guidelines. So the State League has adopted this policy, and it is to be used for any candidate forums for state level or federal level offices. On the screen are the different federal and state level offices that this policy applies to. So if you're going to be holding any candidate forums for any of these offices, please do make sure that you adhere to this. Some that are going to be up this year are President, U.S. Senate, Congress, let's see, the Court of Appeals and the State Assembly, State Senate, and the Circuit Court races as well. And as I said, the policy that we have in place makes sure that we make decisions and conduct our forums within the regulatory guidelines and also our league framework, and that we're making consistent decisions across the board. So kind of getting into some of the nuts and bolts, the first step of putting together a candidate forum is to decide leadership. So who is going to be on the forum planning committee? The league gets to decide who is on that planning committee and who's going to
Did you call me?
also be a monitor. Anne, could you mute? And then we also really strongly encourage partnerships with other organizations and co-sponsors. But it is really important that any potential co-sponsors or partners are viewed by the community as being nonpartisan. So just make sure that they haven't endorsed any candidates, aren't aligned with the political party, and that they haven't done any sort of like scorecards of saying this candidate is better than another candidate. And we also need to work within our policy. So any partners that we have must be willing to work within our policy as well. Next is, deciding, okay, what candidates are eligible to participate in our candidate forum. We invite candidates who meet our criteria. They must be eligible to hold the office that they are running for. And then they also must be on the ballot. So they must have circulated their paperwork, gotten their nomination signatures in, and be on the ballot. We don't allow write-ins for write-in candidates for inclusion in our candidate forums. Although at the local level, that is up to you to decide, but just at the state and federal level, if you're going to be holding a candidate forum for any of those offices, be aware that we do not include write-in candidates. We do have criteria for candidate participation. So candidates must be available to participate in real time, whether that's virtually or in person. We do not allow pre-recorded statements from the candidates to serve as a substitute for them participating in the forum. And we also don't allow representatives from the campaign who are not the candidate themselves to be their kind of their sit-in person for participation in the forum. And just be aware it is okay to have a forum that has candidates from several offices. I know that this is a common practice among some local leagues to just have, one big candidate forum evening where there are different offices and kind of circulating through those, and that is totally acceptable. One of the challenges that Posey is going to talk about later is some candidates choosing not to participate in our candidate forums. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about our empty chair policy. Any candidate forum that we hold has to have at least 2 candidates participating. If only one candidate agrees to participate, we need to scrap the forum and figure out another alternative to meet our goal of informing voters about the candidates. It is okay though if there are, especially like in the primary when there are many candidates, if one chooses not to participate, but we still have 2 who are willing to participate, the candidate forum can go on in that instance though. And then if we do have a forum where not every candidate is participating, we do expect the moderator at the beginning of the forum to announce that all candidates were invited to participate, and then announce that which candidates chose not to attend without any sort of like editorial explanation. Just saying that a candidate will not be participating is enough information. Now to go a little bit into the logistics of how we conduct the forum. First, all candidates who are going to be invited to participate are sent invitations at the same time via email to their official campaign, their email address that is the one they have declared as their official campaign email address. Follow-up to candidates should all occur at the same time with the same methods. So if you're going to call one person to encourage them to participate, all the candidates should be called to be encouraged to participate. We just want to make sure that we're treating everyone the same and everyone gets the same number of touches in being encouraged to participate. Let's see. And it is a best practice to record, just kind of keep a log of your contacts to the different candidates. Say, okay, we emailed the invitation at this date. We sent a mailed letter at this date, just so that we have that record. And if anyone comes back to us at some point saying, oh, I was never invited, or I didn't get your information, we can say, no, well, on this date, we sent you the invitation, and we can really stand firm in, the knowledge that we did what we were supposed to do. We can record our candidate forums, but it is worth noting that any forum recording that we do must be made available in its entirety. We don't take snippets out of it and, post, a couple minute snippet of the forum. We don't want to make anyone look better or worse than others. So we want the candidates to be seen in the full context of what the conversation was and have it, speak for itself. Selecting a date is really important, and it's up to the candidate forum committee to select the date of the candidate forum. A good faith effort should be made to make sure that the date works equally well for all candidates, and work with the campaigns to make sure that everyone who can or is interested in attending can attend on the specific date. And then location selection, we want to make sure whether it's a virtual, like over Zoom, or an in-person forum that is accessible to the community to come and voters to come and learn the information from the candidates. So we want to have it to be kind of an open forum for the community to come in and learn the information. Now into the structure of the candidate forum. So this is the way that our policy says we're going to run the candidate forum. First, we start with opening remarks. The moderator explains how the forum is going to be conducted, that the guidelines have been shared to all the candidates, that everyone has agreed to follow the guidelines. This is the time, if anybody is not able to participate, that that comment is made as well. And then we go into opening statements from the candidates. It's a set time. Usually, I think between 1 and 3 minutes is given to each candidate to make their opening statement and say, what they want to say about their candidacy. But it is important that everyone is held to a consistent amount of time so that it is fair. Then we get into questions, and the moderator will be asking questions of the candidates and give them equal time to respond to each question. And the order should be chosen by lot and rotate. So each candidate gets the opportunity to be the first one to respond and the last one to respond to the various questions. And then we do have it to be optional to include closing remarks in candidate forums. This is a great opportunity for candidates to, kind of give their closing thoughts. If there was anything that they, didn't say that they wanted to make sure that voters heard them say, it's an opportunity for them to make that known. But again, it's optional, and just make sure that you give everyone the same amount of time to give a closing statement. One of the questions that we get a lot from people who are outside of the league is, where do the questions come from in our candidate forums? So for in-person forums, we distribute cards so that people who are in the audience can write down their questions and submit them to the candidate forum committee for review to then give to the moderator to ask. And then for virtual forums, questions can be generated, prior to the event or in real time, whether using the chat or the Q&A function, depending on the virtual platform. And then I just want to make sure it's known that the candidate forum committee may compose a few questions for the candidates to kind of get the ball rolling while we get questions in from the audience. And they also may screen questions for fairness, repetition, make sure they're open-ended questions, and also screen for anything that is, targeting one candidate over another or offensiveness as well. Now going into promotion and candidate literature, we want everyone to attend our forums. So we want to make sure that we promote them widely through our social media, our newsletters, let the media know so that the community at large has the opportunity to attend and learn about the candidates. And we really want to draw as large and diverse of an audience as possible. And then into candidate literature, we don't allow candidates to bring their literature into the candidate forum room, the space where the candidate forum is being held, whether that's in person or virtual. They can display their information outside of the room if they want to distribute it, but anything that they have must have the disclaimer of who paid for the candidate literature. And then for any candidate forums that a local league is holding that's for a state or federal office, we do ask that the state league be brought in as a co-sponsor, since we are the state league, and they must follow the candidate forum policy that we have set up. And we don't want it to make it one-sided, so we have a few things that we offer as the state league to help with the candidate forum. We assist with promotion, are able to provide guidance as needed in the process, We'll share our policy, our candidate forum guidelines, share resources from national. We also assist with any translation that you might want to have for your community. Maybe you have a lot of Spanish speakers, maybe you have a large Hmong community. We want to be able to be a resource to help make sure that anyone who wants the information can access it. So let us know if that's something of interest to your league. And then we also want to help vet and approve any potential co-sponsors as well. And then I think I mentioned this earlier, but if I didn't, I don't want to be remiss in mentioning it. So the policy that I just went through is the policy for state and federal offices. Local leagues are strongly encouraged to put together their own policies for local offices. You can adopt the policy that the state league has and just use it for your local candidate forums as well. But you have some flexibility in setting up what the parameters are of your local candidate forums. Just make sure that everyone's being treated equally and fairly. And we're happy to consult on that as well if you have any questions. And now just to go into some DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion considerations. Some things to think about are who is on your forum planning committee? Do they represent the community at large? Are there any organizations that you want to partner with? Maybe they can get people to show up from the community that maybe the league doesn't typically reach. And so that might be a really great way to expand the reach and make your event more inclusive. Also think about the time of day and location. I'm never going to show up to a candidate forum that's going on at 2 a.m. And I'm sure many people here wouldn't do that either. So, there's definitely considerations as far as time and day. Think too about physical location versus online. Online gives a lot of flexibility, but there's also, that really great community feel of having the forum in person and having that, live audience of people in the room. So think about that as well. If you're going to be in a physical location, make sure it's somewhere that is easy to get to. Is there parking? Is there not parking? Can people get there on public transit? Those sorts of things. And then think through too, are there any accommodations for people in your community with disabilities that they might need? If you have any slides, are the slides big enough for people to read? If people have auditory issues, there's assistive technology that can also help out with that as well. And again, we're more than happy to consult on those kinds of things. And then also thinking about, what is the net of people you're inviting to? Think about people who are outside of your network. How do we inform them about the candidate forum so that as many people from the community as possible are aware of what's happening and can participate if they want to. So with that, Posey, I'm going to pass it over to you for your section.
Okay. I'm going to be talking about what this looks like on the ground and challenges that we're all facing. So a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of guidance, and then hopefully a chance to talk and see what we can share, maybe solving some of those. Eileen, you can skip ahead 2 slides if you want. There we go. No surprise that the biggest challenge most people face is getting candidates to respond and getting them to participate. So next slide. Sometimes it's scheduling conflicts for sure. For example, we set a date, believe it or not, a year ago for a forum because we knew the space we wanted. The library, wonderful meeting space at the Menasha Library was going to, is very heavily used, and we had heard through the grapevine that there would be people running as soon as the current mayor indicated his interest in not he was going to retire. So we have a date, and those 4 candidates running in the primary just better be available. We don't have the luxury of going someplace else. Sometimes, you know, it's legit, sometimes not. That's up to the candidate. A big problem is the second one. We have candidates who think we're a bunch of liberals and that we are partisan no matter what we say, and they don't want to do anything that is associated with us. And sometimes we just have a hard time reaching out to the candidate. We may have incorrect information given us from the clerk. We may have, you know, a wrong phone number. We have really, with some candidates, have really had to work very, very hard to do it. When Eileen mentioned keeping a record of everything, we keep a meticulous spreadsheet of who was contacted by whom, who's got the copy of the email. We want to be sure that we are doing our due diligence in reaching out to them because we want them to. Okay, next slide. Some things that have worked for other leagues is having people in the community reach out to the candidate. Hey, I really want you to participate in this forum. Or somebody mentioned in the comments that we're going to talk about Vote 411. This is also a strategy that might help persuade a candidate to participate in that. You have to think, how adaptable for candidate schedules can you be? I can remember a few years ago, we were able to offer 3 dates to candidates, and we picked the date where most of the candidates could attend. We can't do that now. We've got to line up videographers, we've got to line up space, but maybe in your situation, that's possible. It's always in everybody's best interest, especially the voters, when more candidates can be there, okay? If you're doing Zoom, you might be doing all Zoom like we did during COVID, or maybe you're doing a hybrid. Have someone who's really good with technology. Don't look at me. That would not be me. And I'm just going to say, like, has anybody tried candidate shaming in a nice way, in a more direct way? And that leads us to the next slide. And we'll just go through some of the things that League of Women Voters US thinks is a good strategy. So you can just advance that slide, Eileen. It's the next one.
Oh, it's not the from the US?
Yeah, it'll say from LWVUS. I'm not seeing that slide. I'm seeing the same one.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop sharing my.
There we go.
Okay, good. I'm like,
Are
maybe.
you all seeing from LWVUS? All right, great. They suggest issuing a public statement pressuring candidates, and I'm not sure how you feel about that. You can just hold on to those thoughts because the next slide is a chance for us to discuss that. Some points to make, and I don't think this first one is particularly shaming, but it's pointing out that it's really the voters who are losing when candidates refuse to participate. Whatever a candidate thinks about us, they're trying to represent a district, a state, a school district. Okay, so it's sort of their job to let voters know what they think. A candidate forum is a job interview. Why would you hire someone who won't show up for that interview? And then finally, voters have a negative view of candidates who don't participate. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. I think there are probably voters who think it's a really good thing when the candidates don't participate, and I'll just leave it at that. Our next slide is asking what's worked for your league. So let's just take a few minutes. If you've got an idea you'd like to share with either you can put your hand up, we'll call on you, unmute yourself and tell us how something that maybe you have done, your league has done to make this work. Anybody? Sally in Stevens Point.
Hi. I have colleagues here, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I think the last forums we had a little trouble getting some candidates to participate with us, but we co-sponsored with the University Student Government Association, and if they contacted them, they seemed more receptive to them than they were to us.
Oh.
So that, I think that helped in that one instance.
That's great.
That's
Lucky you that you found somebody to not only co-sponsor, but co-do the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I've got to kind of.
Sue, do you want to go?
Yes, to build on what Sally said, because we're from the same league, what has also helped is we have also co-sponsored not only with the Student Government Association at the university, but the Stevens Point Area High School Student Senate and with the Portage County Business Council. So between those other three co-sponsors, that tends to bring some legitimacy, if you will, to our forum. And the last time we had it last spring, when we had the spring election forums, we had 99.9% acceptance rate. One person couldn't come because of a work situation. So we are getting known, I think, in our community. And once people have gone through the process and they see it's not painful and that we aren't partisan and we give everybody equal opportunity, I think we've gotten the reputation that we're an okay organization.
Wonderful. Anybody else doing any partnerships with other orgs as you are planning your forums or co-sponsoring? Or anything you did to encourage participation that either worked or backfired? Good. This is a good time to tell a good story. Julie?
Looks like Julie, yeah.
Hi, yeah, I'm with the Milwaukee County League of Women Voters. And we always have a community sponsor, basically. And the invitation letters always come from them. And most of the time that results in near 100% acceptance. There's been a couple of exceptions, but that seems to work pretty well.
Excellent. I think one problem my league is having with that is finding an organization that doesn't endorse, doesn't have a political perception, which perhaps we ourselves have, and is willing to help with the work. We have co-sponsors who, they come and they help the evening of the event, but we are really doing all the behind the scenes stuff. I will mention though, Winnebago County, we sort of have two different metro areas, and our Oshkosh area metro area really partners well with Oshkosh Media, which is the local city-owned cable network. Marlene, you can correct me if I'm misrepresenting any of that. They do the recording. They're live streamed on Oshkosh Media, which anybody who has cable, actually in all of Winnebago County, can watch those forums. And they play them at least once or twice a day in between the forum and election day, and they're very popular. We don't have that situation up in the north end of in the Nina Menasha area where I live. So we've sort of got to scramble, but that sort of frees up those Oshkosh area people to kind of help us out a little bit because they've got a little bit of an easier lift, although not always. But that's a great partnership that I'm very envious of. Anything else on getting candidates to participate? Otherwise, we'll just keep moving, and that will leave more time for questions.
Dorothy, do you want to go?
I just want to echo that the best luck we've had is when we have partnered with student organizations, high school student organizations. And that brings an element of enthusiasm. It provides the students with some real life civics education. And you can structure things or advertise things such that it's not really, you don't want to shame the candidates, but they don't want to welch out on the youth of their community. So that creates a good wedge and improves the learning situation for everybody.
That's a great point. Leslie?
Thank you. I'm from the La Crosse Area League, and my question, I guess, is about partnering with high school student organizations or university. Do you reach out to the high schools directly through teachers or the principal or the superintendent or whatever and try to establish that connection to see if they're interested in co-sponsoring?
Yeah, you have to get the permission and the support of particularly the principal.
Okay.
And then from there, the sponsors of the particular clubs, the teachers who
Okay.
are the sponsors of the student organization.
Sue, did you want to share some thoughts as well?
Yeah, and Sally can jump in too because we work together on this. Yeah, we work with the high school. We approach the principal first, but then also the social studies civics teacher, who just also happens to be a member of our league. That also helps. She's the sponsor of the student senate, and when we plan, we have Zoom meetings. In fact, we have one tomorrow with all our partners, and we work on everything together, deciding on everything about location and our starter questions and people who will follow up if need be with candidates. And so it's really a good process. And like you say, having the students involved, it's a good civics education. And we have found the students have really appreciated being involved, and they've learned a lot. We have them help screen the questions. We have them be ushers to collect the cards from questions from the audience. So we have them involved, and it's really great. And also with the university, same thing. They're part of our planning committee, and yeah, it's all good. We've had a really positive experience. Sally, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I have a couple of things that you put me in mind of. The Student Senate and the SGA at the high school and the SGA at the college, at the university. We elicit some questions from them because they have different, they may have different areas of concern than we do as primarily middle-aged or older white women, generally speaking. And so I think we always try to submit a question or two that they have about like electric car plugins or whatever they're interested in. And that makes them, I think, feel really involved in in the process. And the feedback from especially the high school students has been very gratifying. They really loved it. And what I think is great is that it shows them that people can have civil discourse. You don't have to be, terribly partisan to do something good. And I just think it's a great idea to do that. So.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Posey, should we move on? We can now.
Yes, yeah, we'll move on.
action.
Thank you. I am just like kind of inspired to do better. Thanks. Yeah. Next slide. I think we sort of covered some of these things already, but finding that location is important, and accessibility is really critical. Eileen touched on that, talking about DEI. So we can just hop along to the next slide. And actually, these are things we learned the hard way. And actually, last year, in anticipation of this presentation, I surveyed people, voter services people across the league. And here are some of the things, sort of the words of wisdom. I have a detailed checklist for absolutely everything. Everything. To make sure that nothing is left to chance. This second one, short focus time with a candidate works best. This one really pertains, I'm going to be talking about how the Appleton Fox Cities League does their recorded interviews, and they're short and focused instead of long forever. If you're moderator, sometimes we use a moderator who is a member. Sometimes we're using some moderators who are not. We create a script for both, actually. So when it starts, they are sure that they are mentioning that we are nonpartisan, and this is how this event will be, and who's going to get the questions, and they don't forget to mention vote 411. We want to make sure everything is there. We want our moderator to just be able to relax, focus on the questions, and make sure they're asking the right question to the right person. Back in the day, if you're doing Zoom, especially if it's a pure Zoom, make sure. We've had a lot of success with having a practice like the week before or several days before the event. We wanted to make sure everybody's camera worked, their mic worked. We had a candidate once who had a nude painting behind him while in the practice. So we just asked him if he could either remove it or just go in another room. And that was kind of fun. And we're glad we didn't have to do that the night of the event. Glad we had that shakedown. It also makes the candidate feel more comfortable. Okay, this is how the questioning is going to go. This is how I'm going to be called on. This is how it's going to work. Makes everything better. Have a method to cut off a candidate going over. We have a timer. We've got the stop signs to tell people to stop, but sometimes they don't. We also had a candidate once who insisted that he could have extra time because he didn't use all his time on a previous question. And we had to be pretty direct. That is now actually in the policy that our candidates receive. So they know that that is not an okay thing to do. Next slide. Can you advance the slide, Eileen?
I did. I wonder if it's my connection, but I'll
Oh, okay.
is it
Oh,
there?
it is there. We're good there
Okay.
now. Thanks. When you say that, when you might say in your introduction that League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, be sure you explain what that means. be sure you say, we do not endorse candidates or parties. We have policies. This forum is about empowering the voters who are in this room who are going to watch this recording. The second one on this slide, have a sheet with all the candidate information, contact information on it. When we do our forum on February 8th, we will have 8 candidates for 3 seats for Neenah School Board. We'll be lucky if we get 2 or 3 questions in. We know that people who come to the forum and submit questions, sometimes they're kind of angry that their question wasn't chosen. Why didn't you choose my question? We want to say, hey, responsible voter, you contact the candidates. This is as much as we could do. We couldn't be here for 5 hours having this forum. It's just very helpful. And actually the candidates like to have that. That's like a little free advertising for them. I mean, it's just their name and their contact information, but they have it. We always send a copy of the recording to the candidates and demand that they do not edit the recording in any way. If candidates in this area have a Facebook page for their candidacy, I am following that. So I'm making sure, I hope, that they're not doing that. We talked about partnering with organizations, so we don't need to spend too much time there. Send thank you notes to everybody, handwritten thank you notes, just like Grandma taught you to do. They go a long way to every candidate, everyone who helped your high school students. It means a lot because they did a lot. They did a lot to help us. Okay, moving along. There are leagues that do some alternatives and to forums, and we're gonna just take a little minute and look at a few of those. How are we doing for time? Ooh, we better hurry. Okay. The first one is going to be Ashland and Bayfield counties, and Kate Miller is going to tell us a little bit about how that worked. So go ahead, Kate.
Hi. For the record, we organized one meet and greet for tribal elections on Bad River, one of the Ojibwe reservations in our area. We decided to forgo the forum because we were unable to receive confirmation from both candidates that were running for a particular position if they were able to participate. The tribes, unlike municipalities, are not obliged to divulge the contact information for the candidates. We relied on social media such as our Facebook page and specifically the Bad River posting group to invite candidates to contact us, as well as voters to attend and to spread the word. Also, with no confirmation, we could not expect the volunteers necessary that would be doing the varied roles in a forum to travel a distance at night, late in October, just in case candidates showed up. More candidates than what we expected showed up. Our understanding was that we were not going to be giving the candidates an open mic, but rather providing an opportunity for the voters to have one-on-one individual conversations. And we allowed couples to engage with candidates together. So we set up the room. We were at the Bad River Community Center, which was arranged by Lynn Madej Big Boy, a tribal member and a former league board member. So she had reserved the room for us, and it was a large room, and we set up tables all around the room, similar to like a parent-teacher conference, where the candidate was sitting on one side of the table, and then there were 2 chairs on the other side of the table, so that people who came, voters that came, were able to move around the room and have one-on-one conversations with them. Each of the candidates, sat at a table, and the voters on the other side. So Lynn had also felt that it was important that we proceed in some fashion rather than to cancel it. We were able to demonstrate to Bad River that we were honored to show up. Conversations between leaguers and candidates, as well as community members, increased the understanding of how the league does things, that we provide fairness. Several of the candidates went home with one of our vote signs that are written in Ojibwe. And some of the things that we learned the hard way. We need to find creative ways of inviting candidates. Anne Chartier was able to have a valuable phone conversation with one of the candidates who was skeptical skeptical about coming, but they did come around anyway. Only a few voters attended, probably due to uncertainty about whether the forum was going to take place or could have been any other reason. One voter traveled a very long distance and was extremely appreciative of the experience. Would we do it again? Yes. I think so, and I believe Anne thought so as well. And I think that we got that message from the tribe too, that they would be interested in doing something in the future, because it was important that we showed up, that we were seen as interested in partnering with the tribe and to help nurture a stronger relationship. So that's about all I have to share on that. You're muted.
If you have questions about these, just put them in the chat or hold them. We'll have a little chance to discuss. We're just going to go through these alternatives. Okay, let's keep moving. Eileen, candidate interviews. This is from the Appleton Fox Cities League, and they really have developed what I would consider a best practice. Go ahead. There were two reasons. This all came about the perfect storm, COVID, and the Appleton Public Library, which had always been the place where Appleton Fox Cities would hold their forums, was and still is under construction. So they weren't able to use that space. And then next slide. To make matters even more exciting, they had 9 people running for Appleton School Board in one election, and just thought that an in-person forum would be very difficult to pull off. So basically what they did and was to do one-on-one interviews with candidates. And then they posted them on their website and on Vote 411. They found some great things. People liked them. Meaning the voters liked them, the candidates liked them. Scheduling became easier. So if you had people working different kinds of hours or different days, they didn't need to find one day for everyone. Okay, and just keep moving here. They are working with students to ask some of the questions. So they're doing that youth vote as well. They contacted sort of the student reporters for the student newspapers to work on being the interview. Next slide. They were very careful to make sure that everything was done exactly the same for all the candidates. The questions were in the same order. Everyone had the same time. They have a very slick system on their Zoom. They must have a crazy expensive Zoom account or something where the timer is visible all the time to the speaker and to the candidate on a Zoom. It's very well done. They do just a wonderful job. And they're very careful to hold off and post all at the same time. So if there are 9 candidates and they got 7 to participate, they wait until all 7 or all 9 or however many are completed before they post them. They're all done at the same time. And I like this if they have, if one of the 2 candidates doesn't participate, they still do the interview, but they don't put it on their website. They do put it on 411, and I'm not sure if that violates any situations with all those regulations that Eileen would talk about, but they sort of redid their whole policy, their whole forum policy to take into account this new way to do it, and they're going to continue doing it. So if you are interested in this and how they do it, Jackie Klimaszewski from the Appleton Fox Cities League is the person to talk to. They've just got it down to a science. They do such a great job. Okay, I think I'm done.
All right, I'll jump back in. And Posey, to your comment about whether it's okay to post the candidate interview videos on Vote 411, even though not all the candidates have participated in interviews. That's okay. We'll get into Vote 411 here in a minute. But I just wanted to clarify that that's okay. We just make it very clear that everyone was invited to participate, and we still provide all the information that we can about the candidates on Vote 411 as well. So everyone is represented on there, and so that's kind of one of the inherent differences between the interviews Vote 411 versus candidate forums. And also there's just because candidate forums and candidate debates have been such a long-standing, I guess, traditional way of engaging candidates, there's just more regulation around those, I don't know, that way of, I guess, of engaging candidates that doesn't necessarily exist for these other methods. So that's one of the reasons why you can do it for the interviews and Vote 411 and not for a candidate forum. Julie talked about this a little bit already, and Julie, I don't want to, talk for the Milwaukee County League, but if you want to chime in, please do feel free. But we did want to share that one of the things that the Milwaukee County League does is provide training for partners to hold their own candidate forums, and also to provide league moderators as part of that kind of that package. And it's a way to get the community involved, take some of the pressure off of the local league to do all of the work. And I've heard very successful things from it. Julie, I see you came off mute, so if you want to share, please do.
Oh, yeah, I guess I would just say I wouldn't say we've provided explicit training to partners, although we'd be happy to do so. But we do, I guess we don't typically sponsor the forums ourselves. We have the community organization that sponsors it, and then we just provide the moderation services or the facilitation services. And I put in the chat, responding to someone else's comment, that we have a pretty extensive forum toolkit that we can share with our community sponsors. And we've also shared that with other organizations that decide not to use us as a facilitator, but they use that information to help run their own forums. So
great, thanks so much for sharing. So that's just a little bit of a taste of, another way to still have community forums, but not have all the pressure on the local league to do it all. And then we did want to talk about voter guides and Vote 411. Vote 411 is just one way to send out questionnaires and get written responses from candidates. I know some leagues work with their local newspapers or media outlets to do something similar and not post it on Vote 411, and that's also okay as well. Some of the benefits of doing the written guides is that, again, candidates don't all have to appear at one place at one time, so the scheduling conflict goes away. I find, some voters prefer to just, read what the candidate says versus watching a video or a long recorded forum. And so voters can go and look at it kind of on their own schedule. So that is also a perk as well. Let's see. And so your committee who works on Vote 411 would come up with questions to pose to candidates. Typically, we suggest having 3 to 5 questions per candidate. Make sure that the outreach is all the same across the board, so you have that consistency there. And then also, I'm going to share a preview of what it looks like on Vote 411. When a voter goes to see it, they can actually compare the two candidates or multiple candidates side by side and see, what do they look like? Find their contact information, find their website. If they have a social media presence, they can find that as well. And then we have our questions there. Candidates can choose to respond to the questions or not. Whatever the candidate wants to say in their allotted space is fine. We don't moderate that or regulate it. If they want to say, the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin sucks and I don't like them, I'm not going to take it down just because that I don't agree with what they're saying. And so it is verbatim what the candidates want voters to know about them. And we do publish the candidate information for everyone who's running, whether or not they choose to respond to our questions. And it is a way to supplement the information that voters have available to them about the candidates. We ended right on time, 7:01. Now it's time if anyone has any questions or any discussion points, any best practices that you have that we didn't cover, or any forum alternatives that you want to share with everybody that, you know, maybe we didn't know about. Sally, I see you have your hand raised. Or Sue?
Yeah, this goes back to candidate materials in the room. We had a situation where we had one candidate had a bunch of people come in wearing their t-shirts, you know, promoting that candidate. We said in the materials that was sent out that no buttons, no t-shirts, no promotional materials within the room. The way we handled it is we asked the people who were wearing the t-shirts to go in the bathroom and turn them inside out, and they did. So is that legal and feasible? Was that the right way to handle it, or is there a better way?
To me, it sounds like you handled it very well. I think that's the way to go. And it sounds like it's not like I could imagine it leading to a potential conflict, and so kind of being prepared of, you know, how do you handle that if it comes up? But I do think that that is a great way to handle that situation. Dorothy?
Is it necessary, or does anybody find it best practices to have the candidates sign a permission to have the forum recorded? That's one question. And my other question is to Anne, what did you say to the reluctant tribal member to get them to join? Because we have a significant tribal component. We're trying to cooperate with the local tribes and would appreciate any little hints there.
Meet okay?
I think this is an open question for anyone who has an answer for Dorothy.
So first off, do you need to have candidates sign a written permission to have them record themselves recorded during the forum?
So I can, from my perspective, in our candidate forum policy, we make sure to distribute it to every candidate and make it known to them that we may be recording it. And I think that their participation is like them opting into being willing to be recorded. But I can imagine others feel differently, and maybe others do have releases for candidates. And I don't think that that would be out of the bounds if that's something that you wanted to do or felt, you know, covered your butt in some way, in case somebody was upset. But I don't know, has anyone had any issues with candidates who wanted to participate but then found out that you were going to be recording and then wanted to back out because of that, or asked you to not record? Sue? Oh, you're muted, Sue.
When we invite the candidates, we write right in there that the Stevens Point City Media will be recording it and will be playing on the Access channel several days a week until the election. And we have never had any pushback, never questioned it. And in fact, they appreciate it because they know many people don't make it to the forums, but this gives them a chance to see them and get their, learn more about them by, going when they find the time to watch the video. So we've never had any pushback, and it's almost now, it's expected that that's what we're gonna do.
I also imagine many of them see it as a benefit that more
Mhm.
voters will get to hear what they have to say. Jan, do you want to go?
Yeah, Jan Morlock from Greater Chippewa Valley. What's your advice about a situation where one party is having a primary election with multiple candidates? The other party, in preparing for the general election, is not going to need to have a primary. They only have one candidate. Is it acceptable to do a primary for one party or the other? I mean, to do a candidate forum with primary candidates for one party if the other one is not holding a primary?
I think this is a great question, and I think it's something that should be spelled out in your policy, and just make sure that if you're going to hold a forum for a primary for one party, that you're not only ever holding it for one party over another. I think it's important to find that balance and show and demonstrate the community that you are holding them for both parties, more than both parties, because some of them there's some other parties that also, have primaries as well. So I think that it's just important to have that balance and make sure that you're consistent with it. But yeah, especially in August, I mean, the partisan primary, the candidates are vying against each other within the party to be the nominee on the ballot for November. So I think it is important for voters to have an opportunity to learn about those candidates, and especially because our state is so gerrymandered, often the primary is more important than the general at times. So I do think that it is acceptable, but just be careful about how you proceed with it and make sure it's fair and balanced.
Thank you.
Sally.
Yeah, I had a question and a comment. I was similar to the other question about consent forms. The league that sends their information to 411, the candidates' answers to their questions. I was wondering if that needed some kind of written consent form, or do you just say, is it all right if we send this off to 411? I don't know. I suppose that's our discretion there too. But you can think about that. But I was going to say another way that our league handles not forums, when we can't do forums, like when they have to get we don't even know who the candidates are until a week or two into January, and the forum's going to be in mid-February or something. What our league has been doing, and Sue chime in, because we have some relationship with one of our local newspapers and then sometimes the other one, and we will, with their permission or encouragement, send questions out to the candidates for the primary, and then we'll get those and put them together and then send them off, and the paper prints them for us and for them. So it's a way, when we can't do a forum, of getting candidate information out.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Sally. And then was your question about whether you need advanced permission to share like a candidate forum recording on Vote 411 or the interviews on Vote 411?
Yeah, I think it was the interviews that they said that they will put those. I'm trying to remember who said that they send them to 411, and if the candidates know about that.
Yeah, I think it's always a best practice to be transparent with candidates about what you are planning to do with the information that they give you, and just, be upfront from the beginning that you are going to, make them public, post them on the website, or post them on other league websites. I know there's information, kind of like in our invitation that we send to candidates on Vote for One, saying that, the date we plan to publish the voter guide, and that we may use their information in other like league printed guides or on league's websites. And so I think that could be a best practice, is when you invite the candidates to just make sure they're aware of all the spaces that their information is going to be. And that also helps you promote the information as well. So if the candidate knows, oh, Vote for One, it's going to be on Vote for One, and there's all this other information there, they can send voters there to find their responses to the questions. Does anyone else have any thoughts? I'm going to scroll back through the chat to see if we have anything. Oh, Joyce.
Yes, hello. One of the controversial things up here in Ashland-Bayfield County League has been the empty chair issue. And one thought that occurred to me is when you were also talking about possibly having a forum where you had multiple candidates for multiple positions, did I understand that correctly at the beginning, that that was one of the ideas? That like you could have mayor and city councils all mixed together, or is that, I thought that you had mentioned that as an earlier option.
I think that there's kind of two ideas in there. One is for each contest on the ballot, you should have at least 2 candidates per contest participate, so you don't have only one candidate in that contest. But I do know that some leagues have forums, and if your league is one of them, please do chime in, that have forums for multiple offices, and maybe they have, similar questions or similar concerns in the community for the different offices, or they, stack them one after another and just kind of have a night of forums. And that is acceptable. But does anyone have any lived experience that they want to chime in on this question?
We have traditionally had back-to-back forums, like, okay, here's the mayor part, here's the city council part, but when my ears kind of pricked up when you had mentioned a night of mixed candidates, or I thought you had, so, okay. But yeah, and I don't know how many other leagues have, because for local elections, we've typically followed the, federal state guidelines of having at least 2, but I understood you were saying you don't have to. Is that, are we allowed to have our own guideline on that issue?
At the local level, you have more flexibility on how you determine when to call it because of an empty chair. I will say the IRS guidelines still apply, and so do the league nonpartisan policy. So definitely keep that in mind and have it written down in your local policy. But depending on how the situation arises, the facts and circumstances of the situation can be more in your favor. So for example, if you had a candidate forum and both candidates said they were going to come, and then one just doesn't show up, and then you have the audience there, you have the candidate there, and you had no notice that this person wasn't going to be there. That could be a situation where if in your policy, your local policy decided that you wanted to continue on because it's of service to voters to have that information out there, that is a decision that you can make at the local level. Don't record it, because that runs afoul of the Federal Communications Commission's guidelines, and anything that's recorded and broadcast, including on YouTube or live streamed, that doesn't meet those guidelines. So I would say if you want to pursue that, make sure you have it written down so that you can always go back to it in case you have any concerns that come up. and make sure that you are operating in a way where the facts and circumstances of the situation are going to fall in your favor, and that you hold true to our nonpartisan policy.
Okay, but best practices seems to be that unless you get at least two to agree to come, that you probably would just cancel. I mean, you wouldn't schedule it.
Right, I wouldn't schedule it. You could move to one of the alternatives. So maybe the reason why they didn't want to attend is because of a scheduling conflict. And so doing the interviews is a good way to, you know, remove that
Okay.
barrier. Or I think the candidate meet and greet idea would be really great. And that's an opportunity where you can have candidates that are going to be on the ballot, maybe for school board and for city council and for mayor, you know, all in the room at the same time. And having multiple candidates there shows that you really put your best foot forward and encouraging them to show up. So there's ways where you can have activities that meet our goal of informing voters and shift it from candidates having all the control to shut down a candidate forum to saying, okay, well, we're going to find a way to make it happen because voters deserve to have information about who wants to represent them.
Right, okay. And one other question, comment. What do you all do as far as when you see, or do you just announce that other people who are in the room should not record? Because seems like a lot of people have their cell phones or whatever that may or may not be recording. And do you make an announcement that they cannot, or what? How is that handled?
Rosie, I'm looking to you on this one because I haven't had that come up.
I don't think that's ever happened. I've never been aware of anybody recording on their phone at any of our forums. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I don't know. I'm looking to you, Eileen. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I don't know, Dorothy, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's no way if someone wants to record something on their cell phone, there's no way we can practically police that. I think as part of a local policy, that should be considered when making a local policy. And I would strongly encourage having it be a policy that we do not want people to record things on their cell phones because of our focus on including everybody equally and the entire discussion presented. So that I think that's an important consideration and important to have in a local policy, important to speak about it, but you can't police it.
Yeah, and maybe it's something to include in the moderator's script, just a note asking people not to record if that's something that you want to include as an expectation for the audience. Jan.
Thanks, Eileen. So in this time of greater churn and interest in local offices, we have all of our county boards are turning over or are electing all of their supervisors this year. And two of our counties in particular have a lot of contested seats. So 29 seats on the board, 42 candidates that are running in contested election, running for contested seats. And we've had some inquiries from our candidates wondering if the league would be willing to facilitate some kind of a candidate forum. With a number of people that huge, it seems unmanageable to do a forum. So I'm wondering if anybody's ever tried this with county board elections or situations where you have this large number of people. I mean, is this a format that might work for meet and greet, or are we stuck with just getting everybody to, you know, put their responses on Vote 411? Does anybody have any suggestions for voters meeting these candidates?
I would say try the meet and greet because that was similar. There were a number of candidates with the tribe that were running for different offices. And so the room was filled with candidates, and there could have been 10 candidates that were in the room. And aside from that, and encouraging use of 411, and if you want to do interviews. But yeah, it would be difficult to have a forum with 40 participants in it. You'd get one question asked. I think that's probably it.
Right, thank you.
Kate, do you think the tribal members were more culturally comfortable having the meet and greet, the everybody together format rather than
I know that there have been
forum?
forums. There have been forums that have been done on both the Bad River as well as at
Redcliffe.
Redcliffe. So I don't know that it was not that they would be comfortable with it, but it just was what worked out with the timing that we had, and not able to, you know, have confirmation that the two people that were running for a particular office were going to be there. So that's why. I don't think it was necessarily a cultural issue, but it worked.
Jane.
I was wondering, if, do leagues generally get approached by the candidates and asked to do these forums, or do some of the leagues kind of search out the candidates and ask if they'd be interested in having a forum? Is there one way more that people experience that than another? You know, we've talked about that. It's, I mean, we don't go out searching for candidates to have forums for. From what I understand, if someone approaches us and wants, you know, to do wants us to help them with a forum, then we would do that. You know, we've organized it, but we are in a collaboration with UWL and some of the local media to do forums like at the state district levels.
Posey, do you have thoughts?
I would just say we've been doing forums for so long, and Margie Davies here, she can probably knows how long we've been doing forums. It's kind of understood, and I like run into people at the Y or the grocery store, not necessarily candidates, asking when the forum is. And you know, it's a thing. People rely on it. And when we had to go to Zoom forums during COVID, we had a lot of really unhappy people. We didn't have an alternative, but you know, I think that our communities look to us to do that. We did have one township one time, you know, out in the country that finally had a contested race and asked if we would come in, and we did, and we had a ball working with them, but they haven't had a contested race since then. I don't know. Margie's hand is up, so maybe she can answer how long we've been doing forums. It seems like forever.
I actually can't answer that. I've only been with League close to 20 years now. And I know that our local league was doing them before I joined, because that was one of the first things that I got involved with. So it has been a very long established thing in our area. and we do reach out to the candidates just as soon as we can. And we accommodate as many as we can. We do often, because we have 3 locations in Winnebago County that we do them at least. We have Neenah, we have Menasha, and then we have Oshkosh. We are blessed in Oshkosh to have a local media that offers to do them for us. They put them on YouTube, they live stream them, they project them live. So we have that all built in, which is really, really nice. But we will often do 4 in a row if we have to. If we have to do judges and city council and school board and I don't know, probably county board would also fall in there. When you were talking about county boards, and saying so many different opponents this year, and yes, we have a 35-member board and similar numbers. It's not going to be a happy situation. We could not get them into a room. It would have to be a multi-day thing, and I'm not doing that. But I did talk to our contact at Oshkosh Media, and he made the suggestion that we do what we did during COVID, where we actually brought people into the studio and we asked them the exact same questions, just the way Appleton does, in the same order, but they were the only one who saw it. And then we would hold those until we'd been through all of the county board candidates that had agreed to work with us. And then he would post them all at the same time so that nobody would hear the questions ahead of time that had planned to participate. So that's what we're looking at for county board in the next month or two. But if our primaries had required it, we only have to do 1 primary in Oshkosh, 1 in Menasha, 1 in Neenah, 2 in Neenah. Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that. I'm done now.
Thanks, Margie. Also, I want to point out, with the comments that you made, was candidate forums was one of the first things that you did when you got involved with League, and just wanted to bring that up as this is a great way to get League members involved who maybe are members, but you don't see them volunteering as often. There's a lot of opportunity to start building more leadership within your local league as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Margie. Carol, do you want to go?
Yes. It was mentioned that our intent is to engage the audience with the candidates, that's our number 1 priority. And I'm wondering if it doesn't make sense as we start asking the questions, that if there are questions that have been provided to us by the audience, that it would make sense to start with those. And then for the questions that are done through our league, are put together by our league, would follow. And again, let the audience have the first opportunity. My question, yes.
Oh, it seems like Posey has a response for you.
Yeah, it's purely logistics, Carol. If we have questions from the audience, they do the candidates might do an opener, and we often have to vet the questions. We often have to rewrite them. We might get 5 on the same topic, and we sort of, combine them, and it takes a little while. So if we have a few questions lined up, then that allows us to do that. And by the way, we haven't even mentioned this. The moderator asks the questions. We do not allow the participants to ask the question because we don't know what would happen then.
Right.
Yeah. But yes, it's for them, but 99 times out of 100, the questions that we come up with to sort of fill that time while we get their questions in great shape are on the same topic that we asked. So,
right.
We're hitting something. Yeah.
That's what we do as well. But with the emphasis on the participants, I'm thinking and when we have the table and they look at the questions, and if they're similar, you know, you go ahead and rewrite it. Just make a little bit more of an effort to bring in some of those questions as they come and are able to be sorted out. That's just my comment.
Yeah, Carol, I think that that's a great comment, and I think as much as we can get the questions from the audience and do that, that makes sense. And so maybe there are some ways to do that, whether it's having a table at the beginning and as people filter in, they submit a question so that before it even starts, they're there. But I think both ways make sense and work as we can make it work within the time frame that we have. Kate, I see you have your hand raised.
One of the things we do is when the forum is being advertised, we list in there an email address that voters can email questions to. And so we can gather questions from voters beforehand. They are screened, they're provided to the moderator, and we have them, it's kind of like we do some little pre-work beforehand so that's what we kick off the forum with, that they're actually questions from the voters.
That's a great idea too, Kate. Thanks for bringing that up. I think with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. Thank you all so much for being with us this evening and talking about candidate forums and alternatives, and just being so engaged and willing to share your ideas and best practices and questions that you have. No one person knows everything, but together we know a lot. And I think that this webinar really showed that. So I really appreciate all of you for attending. Cozy, appreciate you for being a co-host of this. And Kate, thank you as well for sharing what Ashland Bayfield is doing too. So thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.